singularity. Well, they say the singularity sprang from empty space. Seems to me the least likely medium for a complex singularity to emerge from is a high vacuum. More likely that a singularity would emerge from a teeming world of human beings and machines and psychedelic drugs and jungles and ecosystems, and that in a super rich informational matrix like that, something might suddenly crystallize out that would be absolutely improbable and fulfill the need for an attractor, a vector for novelty. Yeah.
Time is the dawn line, the given day after the fall.
Well, the way the software is set, it's set for the dawn line at La Chorrera in the Amazon, which is also the dawn line for New York City. When we were doing our most crazed thinking on this subject, the fantasy was that it would take 24 hours for then that it would follow, as you call it, the dawn line, the terminator of the planet, so that as the sun rose, it was hypothesized to have something to do with actually the geomagnetic strum, or what we call the heliomagnetic strum of the star. And so as the sun rose over a 24-hour period, this implosion would occur. It's interesting. I don't understand this theory in the sense that it seems to me it should be fairly easy to overthrow. It's making such highly punctuated predictions. It's not fudging its bets with a smooth curve, and yet the attacks upon it have been unbelievably weak. It seems, but yet it's a curious thing. It's very hard to imagine how anyone could, quote unquote, figure this out. It seems that you would have to find it all at once, done somehow. There's no way into it where you could start to figure it out. So it has this curious completedness. And as a person who was not even that interested in the I Ching, and certainly less interested in diddling around with graph paper, that I should be the John the Baptist of this new dispensation is pretty peculiar. I'm not even into long division. Live.
When you were balancing out various factors in testing out the theory of fractal time, for instance, you've been talking about the spread of Islam and its the growth of poetry and science and so forth within it. But I didn't hear you mention the Inquisition.
One of the strengths and weaknesses of the theory is that it's pretty non-specific. You know, maybe astrology tries to say too much, maybe this tries to say too little. But the Inquisition happened down, well, actually it was stretched out over time, so it depends on what you're actually talking about. But the great novel century, the 15th century, the 1400s, occurs along this gradient. Yeah, novelty is a kind of morally neutral term. I mean, is an invading army raping and pillaging and mixing its genes with the local populace? Is this come out as a plus or a minus on the novelty scale? I don't know. I confess I'm puzzled by this. It's a pretty powerful concept. I mean, I think we do feel in our own lives the ebb and flow of this quality, and that when it's, you know, when you're hot, when you're not, you're not. That's what that's saying. Yeah.
When you were talking earlier about novelty and Sheldrake and novelty versus habit, there was the upswings on this graph where I heard you describe as sort of, you know, conservatism, and the downswings were novelty and new things happening, new things like people in this room generally would like. At least that's how I was hearing it.
Oh, new things like generally people in this room would like. No.
Things that orient themselves towards peace and...
Oh, no, I don't think so. I think a world war here will do just fine to fulfill the novelty requirements of the situation. What amazed me about it was when I was sitting up here after the Romanian Revolution and looking at this hole here, I was saying, boy, something outlandish is going to have to happen, or we're going to have to toss this sucker right out the door. Well, then, lo and behold, with this weird sense of déjà vu and startled amazement and yet vindication, yet horror and disbelief and so forth, it all comes to pass. It fulfills an impossible prophecy. How many times can it do it? Check this out. We've got to get through this. But this thing occurs over a 3-month period in 1995. From March to May of 1995, we have to undergo a descent into novelty that makes what we've been through and are going to go through look like peanuts. So there are built-in tests in the wave so that if it's junk, we should be able to get rid of it long before we're anywhere near 2012. And yet we're meeting now the first of these difficult tests, the first prediction of a steep descent into radical novelty. And, the armies and chancelleries of the world are just rushing furiously to fulfill the prophecy. Yeah. Well, except that that's a kind of a fart at the opera if what you believe is happening is a conservation of novelty, a knitting together, an ever deepening and enriching and connecting kind of thing, and then they drop the bomb. The only way that could redeem it is if our real destiny is in another dimension, and sort of like that wonderful scene at the end of Dr. Strangelove where they sing the song, "We'll meet again someday, somewhere." I don't think it is nuclear holocaust. I think nuclear holocaust is the shadow of the alchemist. Is somehow a way of coaxing the human soul into physical manifestation. I mean, the flying saucer, the extraterrestrial visitant, the philosopher's stone, alchemical mercury, to really realize our dreams. I mean, I think that is really the promise of the psychedelic experience. The thing you find out at the core of the psychedelic experience that you cannot believe, no matter how hard you try, because it's so liberating, is that, dreams are real, apparently. History, there is a way out. It isn't the high walls, all that. It's an illusion. There's some tremendous act of intellectual apprehension or courage or something, and then you break through. You penetrate beyond the mask. There is a mask, there is a beyond the mask. But most people go to the grave without ever even making the effort. Yeah.
Kind of pictogram matrix. Have you tried superimposing it on any other phenomenon, like a heartbeat on a EKG or a microscope readout of music, or anything that you could get form to have a waveform?
Yeah, I mean, the way I think of it is all phenomena are describable within this wave matrix. And when I was at my most illuminated or loaded, or however you want to put it, I could actually see it overlaid over reality. I could actually see that people are knots of novelty in local genetic space. The local space is largely empty, and then there are these knots of space-time where genetic expression and protein transcription is going on. And these are people, and they represent, this extreme concrescence of novelty. Well, then, if you're in a city or something, you see that it is a larger yet more diffuse knot of the same kind of novelty. And, I don't know whether you're losing your mind or assimilating a wave mechanical way of looking at things, but this is it comes close almost to some of the ravings of Carlos Castaneda, that there's a way of shifting perception and processing information, and then you see that, people are interlocking networks of light. They are confluences of casuistry, both in space and time as well as in matter. And no, I was quite into